All right, we got to talk about this. I saw this video a few days ago, and I have not been able to stop thinking about it because it is one of the silliest videos I've ever seen. If there is no God, murder isn't wrong. It's just dumb on its face, you know? And I think it's only a 5-minute video, so they can't really make a very strong case for themselves, but it's still just the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Let's go ahead and watch it.
Do you believe that good and evil exist?
Okay, right off the bat, we have this binary choice, which is not, I mean, of course, good and evil exist. It's a label that we put on things. But if you actually, look into it a little bit further, oftentimes you'll see that people who do evil things that you would consider an evil person have often had terrible, terrible lives, and this is the only way that they know how to take control and, or they're just responding to all of the horrible things that they've experienced in their life, and the only thing they know how to do is give it back, right? Not saying they aren't evil, but you're not just born to do evil things. Like there's bad things that have to happen to you to turn you into somebody like that. Or there's something wrong with their brain chemistry, So can you really call them morally evil if they're just sick? The same thing with good. I mean, the biggest thing I can think of is the military. I live in Texas, so everybody's really gung-ho on the military and, thank you for your service to our country and everything. We love our troops and all, but it's, the only people I know, everyone I know who has joined the military has just done it because it was the most pragmatic thing to do. Like they didn't have anything else going for them, so they joined the military. There's lots of benefits and all of that good stuff. So they're not bad people, but they're certainly not just doing it because they want to serve their fellow man or whatever. Like they are kind of doing it for themselves. And also there's a lot of horrible, horrible people in the military. Like some of the worst people in the world are in the military. I mean, so many war crimes are committed in any military in any country. There's just horrible people, so you can't just say that they're all good, like the military is good. Well, actually, it's, you get what I'm saying. It's a stupid, we're already starting off on a really silly, childish note.
The answer to this question separates Judeo-Christian values from secular values.
Yes, it does. Yep, I agree with you there. Because, well, I'm sure you'll explain it better than I can.
Let me offer the clearest possible example. Murder. Is murder wrong?
Of course.
Is it evil?
Of course.
Nearly everyone would answer yes, but now I will pose a much harder question. How do you know?
Because you're taking a life. I mean, life is about life, right? Life is about the preservation of life. Life is about the persistence of life. Life is about, I mean, if you think about it, it's about what is being creative. Being creative is making something. It's breathing life into, when you create something, it's life, right? It doesn't have to be procreation, but this is so stupid. What am I talking about? I sound like a fucking idiot. There's just so many ways I mean, instinctively that murder is wrong. You don't have to have some kind of concrete reason, but the reason I would give is that life finds a way. And if you've ever had a near-death experience, you know that feeling of wanting to be alive, wanting to live, not wanting to die. It's instinctual. And taking of life is the worst thing you can do. So we all just know that instinctively. It's in our nature. So unless you have some kind of disorder, but or pathology or whatever, but let's hear what he has to say.
I'm sure you think murder is wrong, but how do you know? If I asked you how you know that the earth is round, you would show me photographs from outer space or offer me measurable data.
Yep.
But what photographs could you show? What measurements could you provide that prove that murder or rape or theft is wrong? The fact is, you can't.
Yeah, well, because it's not observable, so that's a bad example, dude. I mean, okay, let's just keep going. I could talk about this more, but I feel like he's gonna. Yeah, I just want to hear him out a little bit more.
There are scientific facts, but without God, there are no moral facts.
That's true. Yeah, there are no moral facts. Sure, I'll give you that. I don't really know exactly what you mean, but yeah, moral fact is not a thing. Like, what? I mean, sometimes killing someone is justified, so it's not considered murder, right? So I guess killing isn't always wrong. I mean, it is always wrong, but it's necessary sometimes. It's justified. If you're defending yourself or someone else, the life of someone else, something like that, I don't understand. No moral facts. I mean, sure, yeah, there's no moral facts. Okay, moving on.
In a secular world, there can only be opinions about morality. They may be personal opinions or society's opinions,
Yeah,
but only opinions.
right. I mean, that's true. That's why certain practices in certain other countries are appalling to each other, right? Like, countries look at each other and they're just appalled at the practices that we do and the practices that they do. So yeah, that's because we all have kind of different opinions about morality that have arisen through the ages and taken root in our society. All right, let's keep going.
Every atheist philosopher I have read or debated on this subject has acknowledged that if there is no God, there is no objective morality.
Okay.
Judeo-Christian values are predicated on the existence of a God of morality.
Yeah.
Existence of a God of morality.
Right. A very specific God with a very specific set of morals that pretty much everyone in our society would disagree with on some level. Now, the only reason they don't is because they don't understand it, or, a lot of people don't really read their Bible like I have, like I was forced to when I was a kid. So, yeah. So we'll get into it.
In other words, only if there is a God who says murder is wrong, is murder wrong.
That's what I mean. This is so dumb, dude. Yeah, so you're saying murder isn't wrong if God has to say murder is wrong for it to be wrong, then that's just God's opinion, and murder isn't necessarily wrong, right? Right? Because who is God? Like, who cares what God has to say? Anyway.
Otherwise, all morality is opinion.
Okay, well, opinion is kind of a weird way to put it. I mean, it's subjective for sure, but
The entire Western world, what we call Western civilization, is based on this understanding.
On the understanding that society decides. That's too broad a statement for me to even address.
Now, let me make two things clear. First, this doesn't mean that if you don't believe in God, you can't be a good person.
That, no one said that. That's so weird. I didn't even think that's what you were saying, because it's just so silly what you're saying. Like, it doesn't mean anything. It's just silly.
There are plenty of kind and moral individuals who don't believe in God and Judeo-Christian values.
Well, there's a big difference between believing in God and believing in Judeo-Christian values, because I would say that most people who think they believe in Judeo-Christian values don't have a clue. They don't have a clue. And the God that they believe in is all gods are figments of your imagination, but this one is not the God. The God that you think you believe in, that you think is the God of the Bible, is absolutely not. In most cases. Otherwise, you're just a horrible person, because the God in the Bible is horrible. And I'll talk about that at length, I'm sure, in future videos. I don't have time right now. Let's keep going.
But the existence of these good people has nothing to do with the question of whether good and evil really exist if there is no God.
Yeah, so why'd you bring it up, you stupid? All right.
Second, there have been plenty of people who believed in God who were not good people.
Yeah. Again, not relevant.
Indeed, more than a few have been evil and have even committed evil in God's name.
No way. More than a few? How about literally every single person who believes in God? I mean, if you think that, what is evil? What's evil to you? What's the threshold? Because people who believe in God and people who don't believe in God are exactly the same. They're not more or less moral at all across the board. There's no difference whatsoever. They just happen to, instead of following their conscience, they follow the moral facts of the Bible, right? I mean, they don't really. That's what I'm trying to say, is they do follow their conscience, but they just think that they're following what the Bible says, right? Whatever. Let's keep going.
The existence of God doesn't ensure people will do good.
No, because it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change your life to know that there is a God. It just doesn't. I mean, you might think that it does, but it doesn't. It has no effect on your life, because God doesn't do anything. It doesn't mean anything. Whatever. Let's just keep going. I'm not trying to rant right now.
I wish it did. The existence of God only ensures that good and evil objectively exist and are not merely opinions.
Yes, but no, it does not. Because God is an opinion. God is a, centuries old moral construct that has been personified in the form of God. It's not like God is a real person who has dictated what is good and what is evil based on his nature. That's what the Bible says. But I mean, God is a thing that was invented by people thousands of years ago. I mean, since the beginning of time, people have worshipped gods, right? And gods represent, we do now. We have, superhero fatigue is really setting in, but they are basically gods. I mean, their problems are not at all like our problems. They can punch the bad things and make them go away, and we cannot do that. But that's what God does, is he punches bad things and makes them die. So the point is, what the hell am I saying? The point is, it's pretty obvious if you just look at the Bible. I mean, if you just look at the world thousands of years ago, people took everything they believed to be right and wrong, all of their good and evil opinions on what good and evil are, right? And they constructed this being that represents everything good, and they have these other beings that represent everything bad. Right? So it's just the God of the Bible is the moral opinions of a society that existed thousands and thousands of years ago, as well as the opinions of all of the people who have added to it and edited it since then. But this whole idea that there is an actual God who actually dictates what is good and bad is just, it's so... I don't understand how anyone could believe that. I mean, that's ridiculous. Especially, if you just read the Bible and actually think about it, you will see so many things that are immoral, that are sanctioned by God, that God told people to do. And, it's obviously just... In the Old Testament, when God was telling people to do stuff, it was a theocracy. There were priests who were pretending to speak to God and coming up with all of these laws and stuff and all of these mandates, all of these commandments, the 10 Commandments, right? I mean, God didn't make the 10 Commandments. If the 10 Commandments existed, I mean, it might all just be a story, but it was obviously written by Moses. Or by whoever the high priests were at the time, right? I've also heard people go so far as to say that Moses didn't exist, but that seems kind of conspiratorial. I mean, I'm just saying what a reasonable person could surmise from reading the Bible is that, I mean, obviously God isn't a real person. It's not a real being. And it was just a theocracy. It was just people. I'll tell you the way you know this, the way I know this, the way I know that it was not, that God isn't real, is because one of the biggest traits of God is that he never changes, right? But all God does in the Bible is change. And the reason is because the Bible was written over the course of thousands of years, and people's opinions about good and evil change. Therefore, God changes. Today, God is nothing like he was in the Old Testament. He's also nothing like he was in the New Testament. It's not the same God because God is like the personification of society's opinions on good and evil, right? I think that's pretty apparent. It's not a conspiracy. It's not crazy to think that. It's pretty obvious if you look at, I mean, right? It's pretty reasonable. Let's move on.
Without God, we therefore end up with what is known as moral relativism.
No. Moral relativism exists with or without God. God is just another construct that is just another opinion of what morals are, but it's always relative. So, yeah, moving on.
Meaning that morality is not absolute, but only relative to the individual or to the society.
No, I think that morality is absolute. But we as a society just haven't reached the point of you know what I mean? We haven't reached the point of actually meeting the standards of morality. We're constantly evolving and constantly getting better, you know? I mean, there's tons of issues that still plague certainly the world, but that still plague our country. And it's because we know what is morally right, and we are trying to pull ourselves up to meet that standard. But yeah, every society, including this one that we're currently living in the world, in America, is immoral in a lot of ways, in a lot of aspects. There's a lot of grievances that a lot of people have with our government, with our society, with just the world. The way the world works as a whole is really messed up, and I don't think anyone's going to argue that. But I don't know, I guess to say morality is absolute, I mean, that might be a strong word, but it's not relative to the individual or to the society. That's the point I'm trying to make. I know hindsight is 2020, and every time we look back on history, everyone says, well, you have to judge it by okay, for example, the founding fathers owned slaves, many of them. I don't know if they all did. I mean, you'd have to be rich too, or have at least some money. So whatever, our founding fathers owned slaves. Well, you have to look at it from the morality of the time, to understand. No, I mean, it was wrong then, and it's wrong now. It wasn't relative to the society. They thought that it was good. I mean, I'm sure in another couple hundred years, people are going to look back on what we are doing now, and they will be appalled at the horror, the immorality, the awful practices that we have today, and they will be right. Just we as a society, a lot of the time, we don't even know, because it's so ingrained in us that we're not even aware of everything that's wrong. Yeah, all right, keep going.
Without God, the words good and evil are just another way of saying I like and I don't like.
No, that's just, what? Come on. That's silly. You're being silly.
If there is no God, the statement murder is evil is the same as the statement I don't like murder.
Okay. This, I think there was some kind of jump in the logic there, because I don't understand. All of a sudden, the reasoning makes no sense now. Like, I was agreeing with a lot of the stuff he was saying before, and now it actually makes no sense. Like, he's trying to... Yeah, I don't really have anything to say, because it's just silly. Like, no one is saying that. No one is saying this. I mean, you're the only one who has said that I'm just going to keep going.
Now, many will argue that you don't need moral absolutes. People won't murder because they don't want to be murdered.
That's not why people don't murder, but again, this is kind of going off the rails, and I don't really have anything to say, so we'll keep going.
But that argument is just wishful thinking.
Well, yeah, people are gonna murder. I mean, with or without God, with or without the law saying they shouldn't, with or without anything, murder is gonna happen. I don't understand. Sorry, he's fuzzy, but whatever. Let's keep going. I mean, I don't. It's really going off the rails here. We've reached the point of you know, yeah, the point where it no longer makes sense.
Hitler, Stalin, and Mao didn't want to be murdered, but that hardly stopped them from murdering about 100 million people.
Again, it kind of, I don't really understand how Hitler factors into this thing. Wow. Oh my God. Also, wasn't Hitler Catholic? I don't know. I don't know. So a Catholic will tell you that Hitler was only using the religion and pretending to be Catholic in order to win over the Catholic populace or the Catholic vote or the Catholic support or whatever. But, you know, we take a lot of people at their word, so I guess we're just not going to take him at his word, huh? That's fair. That's all right.
It is not a coincidence that the rejection of Judeo-Christian values in the Western world by Nazism and communism led to the murder of all these innocent people.
It is a coincidence. I would say that is the definition of a coincidence. It's just, that's kind of how it happened. Because, I mean, do we really want to talk about all of the horrific things that, going back to Catholicism, that they perpetrated on the world? Want to talk about the Crusades? Want to talk about the, I mean, we could go into a lot of stuff. The burning people at the stakes, the witch hunts. You know, it's like Obama said, a lot of bad things were done in the name of God. I'm paraphrasing, but it's just really not a good argument to say that they went on a massive genocidal killing spree because they didn't believe in God. It's kind of stupid. I mean, they were, in the case of Hitler, he just hated the Jews, right? I mean, he thought that they were genetically inferior. He wanted to create like a master race. He wanted to improve the world by weeding out all of the vermin, as he saw it, right? So he thought that the Germans were the master race, which is ridiculous. Like, how could you possibly think that? How could you think that? I mean, as a white person, I just, like, you know, lacking melanin in your skin, for one thing, is a genetic deficiency, man. I mean, it makes you weaker physically. It makes, like, I can't go outside in the sun without turning red. Like, my skin doesn't tan, it just burns. And that's not, there's nothing to be proud of for that, right? It's not a good thing. It is 100% a bad thing, you know? I really wish that something different happened where we didn't lose that whatever gene that is, because it sucks. You know, I think he just thought that Germans looked the most beautiful, but that's silly. I mean, that is so all right, well, anyway, let's keep going, because this is getting real dumb.
It is also not a coincidence that the first societies in the world to abolish slavery, an institution that existed in every known society in human history, were Western societies rooted in Judeo-Christian values?
I can't speak to that. I mean, I don't. The Western societies, were they really rooted in Judeo-Christian values? I mean, that's a topic for a whole other thing. I mean, I don't know. I think it's an oversimplification to say that. I think that abolishing slavery, I'd like to think that abolishing slavery was just an inevitability. Which, I mean, it technically hasn't been abolished. I guess we've gotten rid of it in polite society, but it is still massively prevalent in every country in the world. I live in Texas, and human trafficking is a big deal. It's awful. It's horrible. It's the worst thing. I think it's probably up there as like one of the worst things happening in the world today, right? That this is still a thing. But as far as what he's saying, I mean, sure, I guess I'll give you that. I don't know what. We abolished slavery. Great. God abolished slavery. That's fantastic.
And so were the first societies to affirm universal human rights.
Okay, so let's talk about that. I almost let him get away with it, but there's nothing against slavery in the Bible. I can't believe I almost let him get away with that. There's nothing against slavery in the Bible. There's slavery everywhere in the Bible. I mean, slavery existed throughout the entire history of the Bible, and no one says anything against slavery. I think, I don't think Jesus was pro-slavery. I think that he was already put to death for what he said, and he didn't say anything against slavery. I think that it may have been there's just certain things he didn't talk about for obvious reasons, because they were too radical. I mean, he was probably the most radical person to ever exist. Whatever. We're not going to discuss the existence of Jesus. I mean, who knows what he was really like, right? We don't know. My point is, he didn't even talk about slavery, right? They have never, what's the word? What? They never denounced it, right? Or they never said that it was wrong in the Bible. First of all, universal human rights. Second of all, the Bible is very misogynistic. That's undeniable. And again, I'm not saying it's because God is misogynistic. I'm saying because God isn't real, and this is just a thing that people made up thousands of years ago when they were super misogynistic, I mean, we still have issues with that today. We're not even, again, like I said, in 200 years, people are going to look back and just be completely appalled by the society we live in today. But, universal human rights, that's ridiculous. I mean, again, slavery was in the Bible. And also the Bible is like super racist because the Jewish people are God's chosen people. And, you have to be circumcised or you can't be one of God's people or whatever. It's just like, it's not, if you're God's chosen people, that means everyone else is not God's chosen people. You're essentially saying you're the master race, which I think it's nothing against the Jews. I mean, every society, every person, what am I trying to say? Every country has had their people who think that they're the master race, I mean, with white people, it doesn't really, I'm not German, but I guess you could just lump me in there and say that, Hitler thought that white people were the master race. I live in Texas and I hear the term La Raza thrown around all the time. So there's that. it's just kind of a thing. But you can't say that the Bible is pro human right. Whatever. Let's just keep going.
To emancipate women and to proclaim the value of liberty.
Let's back up.
And so were the first societies to affirm universal human rights, to emancipate women, and to proclaim the value of liberty.
Okay, well, if they did it because of their religious beliefs, then I don't even know what to say. It's coincidental. They used their religious beliefs, like everyone does, to justify the way they feel. I mean, everyone does that. People who, run charities and help people who are in need, they use the Bible to justify what they do, right? And then there's also people who they want to commit genocide, and they use their Bible or their holy book, wherever they are, wherever they're from, whatever their background. Again, he says Western societies, so I don't know what he's talking about, but we always use our religious texts to justify what we do, and I don't think that it came from the Bible. Because if so, why didn't the ancient Israelites just have the perfect society? Because it was an actual theocracy. God was directly in charge of them for a good amount of time, and it wasn't ideal. At least not by today's standards. It wasn't ideal, okay? And it should have been. Whatever.
Today, the rejection of Judeo-Christian values and moral absolutes has led to a world of moral confusion.
Nope. We know what is right and wrong, dude.
In the New York Times in March 2015, a professor of philosophy confirmed this. He wrote,
all right, let's hear what this dumbass professor of philosophy had to say. I swear to God, professors are the stupidest people on earth. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of smart professors, but if you want to find a real dumbass, you go looking for professors and you're going to run into one real quick.
What would you say if you found out that our public schools were teaching children that it is not true that it's wrong to kill people for fun? Would you be surprised? I was.
That's okay. I'm not going to use that word. My God. Sorry, man. My dad used to say that all the time. Okay, it's in my vocabulary. I don't want it to be. I stopped myself. Okay, I always do. I don't say the word. But this is really stupid. This is really dumb. And like I said, that professor did not let me down.
The professor then added, the overwhelming majority of college freshmen view moral claims as mere opinions.
Yeah.
So then...
Well, I mean, I really don't care what college kids think about things. I mean, what do they know? But, I mean, they're right in this case. So, anyway.
Whatever you believe about God or religion, here is a fact. Without a God who is the source of morality, morality is just a matter of opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess it's a fact, right? I mean, I can't argue with that, but the point is that there is no God who's a source of morality. So morality is just a matter of opinion. And to try to say otherwise is just really kind of bizarrely ignorant. Like, I don't know what planet you come from, dude, but what? Oh man, it's hitting me a little bit different all of a sudden. Oh, wow. You just take which God? You know? Which God? Because, you know, everybody's got their own God all over the world. And they all have their own opinions on morality. So which one's the right one? Is it the Judeo-Christian God? Because, okay, right? So I guess he's the source of all morality. And so morality is drawn in stone, and you can, I mean, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great if God just dictated every single thing that was right and wrong? I mean, we wouldn't need anyone to make any new laws. They'd all just kind of be there, right? Or they would have been written back in the old days in the Bible. It would have written every single thing, and we would just have to extrapolate from that. But that's not how it works. This is a really silly video. Like, why did you feel like saying this? I just feel like he said so much, and then we get to the end, and it's like, without a God who is the source of morality, morality is just a matter of opinion. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's true. That's why people struggle to That's why our country has had so many problems and we keep getting better, is because morality isn't absolute. Because if it was, we wouldn't have had all those problems from back in the day. We didn't realize how bad it was because the Bible didn't tell us. Okay? So we had to figure it out ourselves. We had to evolve. It's just, we had to use our brains, which is something that this guy obviously does not want to do, you know? Like, he's just shut down. We need a theocracy. That's what we need. We need the Bible and God to dictate all of the laws to us. That's what we need. We need absolute morality with no room for opinion. Wouldn't that just be a utopia? Is that what he's saying? I mean, I don't really know how else to take this.
So, if you want a good world, the death of Judeo-Christian values should frighten you.
Okay, well, that is just ridiculous. So, Judeo-Christian values are just values, right? You can't say that if you take God away, then all of God's values will be gone. A lot of the values that God has, a lot of the values that are in the Bible that people still hold on to from the Bible, which a lot of it, like I said before, most of the stuff in the Bible is just ignored by Christians. You know, they just don't think about it. They don't pay attention to it. It's because society has rejected all of it because it's awful. It's horrible. But the things that are in the Bible that people, you know, love is patient, love is kind, all of that stuff, it's because they're values that we as a society still hold up we all still believe in that stuff. So if you take God away, it doesn't change the values because the values never came from God in the first place. You know, they just came from us, which is really, it's weird that he doesn't understand that. I feel like everybody kind of knows that, right? Everyone kind of knows that because it's apparent, it's obvious. If you live in the world, you kind of look around you, you'll see that. Oh, well.
I'm Dennis Prager.
Yes, you are. And you should be ashamed of yourself, Dennis. That was terrible. That was terrible. This video made me an atheist. Oh, yeah, I've been here before. See, I told you. Hey, look at that. Religious books are written by humans. Yeah, there you go. Empathy is innate, very common among animals as well. Yeah, but you're using your own moral opinions about stuff. If you ever feel completely worthless in life, just remember that this video, dude, man, this is crazy, dude. I mean, oh no. Oh no. And it's another video that's only like 6 minutes. What in the world? Like, the problem, I think, is with the format, because I want to believe that he couldn't possibly be as stupid as he looks in this video. I think that maybe what happened is all those jumps in logic and stuff, it's because he just didn't have enough time to really dig into it. I mean, like you said, moral philosophy, right? It's a thing that people dedicate their entire lives to. So, and he's just trying to boil it down in 5 minutes, and it just doesn't work. So this is just a recipe for disaster. Oh, man. Oh, no. The work thing. Work, keep working, and then work harder. Oh, man. Oh. I mean, there's nothing wrong with working hard, but, well, you know what he's trying to say. Oh, God, police brutality. They just find the cringiest, just the most, the most sacred and important topics of today, and just create a buttload of cringe centered around it, just make total asses of themselves. My God. I'm going to have to watch these, too. I'm going to have to, because I can't just say that without watching it, right? I mean, that's my assumption based on watching this silly video. Oh, we've just started on a grand adventure, I see. I'll catch you on the flippity flip.